Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So great news, awesome news, I've finally done it. I've finally caught up with One Piece. I have now completely finished Wano and I'm probably like 10 chapters behind or something, but I'll be able to smash that out in the next week. And I couldn't be happier to finally say that after, I think it's been over a year, after all this time, I have finally caught up with One Piece and I am right in time to go into the final saga. Now, what does this mean for the future of One Piece on my channel and all of that stuff? Because I don't think anyone really does chapter by chapter reviews. Moving forward, what my plan is I'm going to be live stream reading the chapters as they release. So, then instead of doing like a chapter by chapter review, we can live stream it, read it together, and then we can just have the opportunity to, like, in a live format, talk to each other about what we think is happening now, what we think is happening in the future, how it correlates with everything that happened in the past. I don't know if I'm actually allowed to do this, so, the plan would be that I would have it on my screen, and I would have me on the screen, and we would read it and talk about it, but that might not be allowed, so if that's not a thing, then what we'll do instead is I'll still live stream read it, but I'll just not have the actual manga on the screen, but we'll like still read it together and, we can talk about it afterwards. What that also means is I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands, so I'm going to be picking up another manga. I haven't looked into it yet. I don't know which one I'm going to do. So if you do have any recommendations, I've been seeing a lot of Demon Hunter recently has been popping up all over my feed. I don't know if that's just an anime or if it's a manga as well. But I've been seeing that. That looks cool. Maybe I might look into that. A lot of people have told me about Berserk. A lot of people have told me about Full Metal Alchemist. So if you do have any recommendations, please do let me know. Chainsaw Man is also Chainsaw Hands or something, whatever that one is, that also gets recommended to me a lot. So please, if you do have any recommendations, let me know, because I am now officially looking for something to fill this void as I wait for these weekly live streaming reviews. But let's go ahead and talk about Wano Act 3. Now, a lot happened in Wano Act 3, as I'm sure that you are more than aware. Full spoilers, of course. If you haven't read Wano Act 3, then this is full spoilers. Let's talk about everything to do with Kaido and him being defeated, right? Because I think that this was a very interesting thing that Oda did. Now, one of my big predictions, and one of the things that was really being set up by this story, was that it wasn't really a Luffy story, right? Like, Luffy was there, and Luffy is the key that we see this story unfold through, right? Like, One Piece is Luffy's story, and we see the entire thing unfold through Luffy. So it made sense that he was there. But it was very interesting that the story was being set up to not be solved by Luffy, to not have Kaido killed by Luffy, right? We obviously get the 9 scabbards, right? The 9 red scabbards. And it was very heavily implied and set up that they were going to be the ones that were going to kill Kaido. They had the Oden two-sword style that they used when they were fighting Kaido, and it was like, that was the same style that put that big mark on his chest. And they also, there are a couple of scenes, if I got them, I'll throw them up, where we see them, like, kind of getting the better hand of Kaido. Now, the story did really feel like it was being set up to be solved by them. And it felt like it was also acknowledged by Oda, because if I've got the panel, I'll throw it up here, but there was this scene right before all the fighting kicks off, where Luffy's talking to someone. I don't know if it was Law or Kid or one of the other Straw Hats, but essentially Luffy says to them, this isn't our fight to start, right? It's like this isn't our fight, this is the Red Scabbard's fight, this is the people of Wano's fight, let them start it, because it's their fight. And it felt like, with that acknowledgement, it would make sense that someone other than Luffy was going to kill Kaido. And then beyond that, we also get the moment where Zoro gets Enema. Zoro gets the sword that Oden used to put the big marks on Kaido's chest. And, this is obviously the land of samurai, this is the land of swordsmen. It's a big thing with Zoro. We find out about, how Zoro got those swords in the first place, and, the direct descendant of the god of the sword, and all that stuff that we find out about Zoro's past. So it was also being set up that perhaps these samurai weren't going to kill Kaido, but perhaps Zoro would. And it would come down to a sword fight between Zoro and Kaido, thus cementing Zoro as, stronger than an emperor when it comes to sword combat. which again wasn't the case, right? Now, the reason I bring up, the 9 red scabbards, and the reason I bring up Zoro as those two were seemingly being set up to defeat Kaido, and then we get Luffy coming in and defeating Kaido, right? Now, the reason I bring up those two is that even though they were being set up and it would have been a fulfilling moment to have them win, and we get Luffy where, it's, okay, Luffy's beaten every other person, like, let's let someone else have the spotlight. I think that the way that they did it with Luffy was actually very, very well done, with him, I guess, dying and then being reborn as Joy Boy, and thus entering Gear 5, right? Now, I did think that that was very good, because it did give us that massive Luffy growth moment, right? And if we didn't get that Luffy growth moment, if it was just like, oh, Luffy's just kind of gotten a little bit stronger, that wouldn't have been nearly as fulfilling. But the fact that Luffy dies and then comes back and has this massive awakening growth moment, we get his awakened Gum powers as well, so he can then, use the ground as rubber, and we start seeing him do all that stuff. That made it so much more fulfilling. So I guess I just wanted to point that out, because, that is some criticism that I have heard, and it's a criticism that I had as well, that, it felt like it would have been much more fulfilling if the samurais were the one to take out Kaido. But then, because of the way Luffy did that, because of the massive awakening that needed to happen with him, that made it so much more fulfilling, and it made it that much more well done. Talking more about growth and awakenings and all that kind of stuff, we also had... I'm pretty sure most people went through some kind of growth or power spike or awakening in this story. Like, for example, let's talk about Sanji, who he also learns a new ability. He also has some kind of special awakening moment. But we also find out more about his, Germa raid suit that he has. And every time he uses it, it slowly awakened whatever dormant powers were inside of him, until it gets to that point where he accidentally hurts a woman, but he kind of blacked out because of it, because he was kind of cold and heartless and unfeeling because of these dormant things that were being woken up inside of him every time he used the raid suit. And in that moment, we get the line where Sanji is like, I don't know which one my captain would prefer, to have the cold, unfeeling super soldier Sanji, or to have, someone that's mortal and human but is a decent dude. And he drops the thing on the ground and destroys it. And he's like, hopefully I've made the right decision. But in that moment, we all know that Luffy would have been like, I don't care about that super soldier thing. I don't want some cold, unfeeling, heartless Sanji. The reason we love Sanji is because he's so great, which is why at the end of Whole Cake Island, when they're sailing away with Sanji, and I think it's his dad is on the boat yelling why do you like Sanji? He's weak and he's compassionate and he's caring and he's this, that, and the other. And Luffy's like, yeah, he is all those things. Why is he yelling compliments to Sanji right now? And I think his Nami is there, and she's like, I don't think that's what he thinks he's doing. So it's just interesting to see that growth moment with Sanji, and it how he, gets rid of that Germa pill thing, and how we know that he did make the right decision, according to Luffy. Zoro also seems to enter his final form with his 3-faced demon thing with the 9 sword style thing. We actually haven't seen that for a while. I remember when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot he could do that, because it's been, as far as I remember, it's been a while since he's used that ability. And now he's done it with 3 super haki swords, so he's entered into his final demon mode. So that was pretty cool to see. Plus we, learnt a bit more about the swords and the history, and how, weapons are cold and unfeeling. They're a tool, but, they demand to be respected because of how dangerous they are. And each sword has its own personality, and you have to bend its will to you and all that kind of stuff. So that was really interesting to find out as well. But now, while we're talking about demons, let's move on to Robin. Because I think Robin also had an awakening, because we see her, super new demon ability. I don't think we've seen that before, where she is fighting the Spider Woman and she goes into some demon thing and just I don't think she rips her in half, but we don't see her body afterwards. So in my head, she ripped her in half. But one of the really interesting things that happens with that moment is when Sanji is caught in the web and the Spider Woman is call for Robin, get her here to save you. And Sanji is like, no, but then he's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I will call for Robin. And he calls for Robin's help. And then, Robin gets there, and the Spider-Woman's like, you are nothing to this crew. You're a liability. You just weigh them down. You just slow them down. You suck, blah, blah, blah. Your crew doesn't even like you. Like, Sanji knew this was a trap, and he knew that I was about to, like, torture and kill you, but he still called you over here because your crew does not like you. Which was a really great moment, because it was that kind of, like, psychological, like, fuckery that Robin believed in the first place. It was that kind of psychological stuff that got her, to the point where she was like, I just want to die. I don't want to live. Nobody talk to me. Like, get away from me, Luffy and all you guys. Like, I don't deserve to live. I am nothing. I am just a curse. I am whatever. So it was like that kind of psychological torment, like this Spider-Woman must have known, because, they were working with the government to capture Robin so the government could have him. And it was just really interesting for Robin to be like, you don't understand how much it means to me that Sanji called out to me and asked me for my help. You're standing here saying all these mean things to me, but I've outgrown that. I've found friends. I've found a place I belong. I want to live, as that classic Robin panel goes. Next, we'll just briefly touch on Nami. Nami gets Zeus living inside of her climax now, so now she has like a kind of like a flail, I guess you could call it, where, I guess he will act as an extension to her climax, so she can like wallop people with Zeus now. So she also got a little bit of a growth, and she also got a bit more power. But let's talk about Chopper, because I feel like Chopper has been really being set up to become this like miraculously super intelligent doctor, right? Because this has happened more than once where Chopper has been able to come across a disease or a sickness or some kind of something, and then pretty quickly find a cure to it, or always know how to fix them, right? And I think that this was a really great moment where Chopper is suffering from the like freezing Oni disease curse thing, and yet while he's still suffering from it, he is able to make these antibiotics to cure everyone. And if you're unaware, my big theory on One Piece is that Luffy will get heart disease and die, or like his heart will give out or something, right? And he will sacrifice himself in order to let his crew get away. And when I tell people this theory of I'm pretty sure Luffy's going to die, people will often say, that's probably why Chopper wants to become the world's greatest doctor, because then, where Gold Roger kind of gave himself up because he was about to die, Chopper will be able to cure Luffy. And so he won't have to give himself up, because he won't be in that situation where he's going to die anyway. And again, in Wano, there was more proof to my theory that I think Luffy's heart is going to give out. Because if you look at this, so this is after Luffy becomes Joy Boy, and Kaido says to him, careful or you'll die. And Luffy says, you actually think I'm afraid of that? Come on, heart, hit that beat. And then Kaido goes, very well then. And then Luffy goes, yeah, that's the sound. And above Lucy's head, it says doom dut dada, which I'm guessing is the sounds of the drums of liberation. I don't know. But anyway, for so long during this story, we've been hearing about Luffy's heart and how everything affects his blood and his, everything. So this to me is just more proof that he's going to die, that he thinks, you actually think I'm afraid of death? Come on, heart, hit that beat. And then his heart starts pounding like a drum. The only thing that would really cement this theory for me is if we found out that Joy Boy died from his heart giving out. Then it would be all but secured in stone for me. Let's talk about Luffy and the whole Joy Boy thing. I feel like I haven't really got enough information on it to really have any thoughts or theories or really feelings about it. Like, it was like, oh, okay, Luffy's Joy Boy. It wasn't all that shocking. It wasn't really all that surprising. I thought Monosuke was going to be Joy Boy, just because of like the way they were talking about timelines and dates and stuff. So I thought he was going to be Joy Boy. But like even then when they were like, Luffy's Joy Boy, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, that's not particularly shocking or surprising, is it? So I don't really have too many thoughts, feelings, or emotions about that until we find out more information. But like I said, it would be very interesting to find out how Joy Boy died last time and to see if how that resonates with Luffy. I will say, though, that everything we learnt about with the government and the gum gum fruit was very interesting. How, the gum gum fruit, they had been trying to get it for the last 1,000 years or something, but it was very elusive and it was actively trying to not be found by the government. I thought that that was really interesting. I thought that was clever. So yeah, it'll be interesting to find out how that all plays out in the future. I don't want to ramble on too much about Wano because I do want to go and read the other 20 chapters that I need to read before I can start live streaming chapters. But the last thing I do want to talk about is Oden. I want to talk about how great of a story that was. Everything that happened with Oden. If you are looking at great backstory, if you are interested in writing great backstory, lovable characters, interesting characters, characters that your audience connects with, everything you need to learn is from that Oden backstory, right? From everything from how he first got his start, where he was, the Shogun's son, and then he got kicked out because he was too much of a little hoodlum, to his adventures at sea, to when he was dancing naked in the street, but in his head it was because every time he did that, every week he did that, he would save 100 lives. And if he did it for 5 years, that was the amount of time that Kaido needed to build ships so they would leave Wano and he would become the shogun again and be able to take care of the people. And it was just one of those things where you're given the perspective of the people of oh, Oden's kind of a dick. When he was eating his hot pot, his Oden, when he was eating on top of the guy's burial fire or whatever that was, when he was being cremated, and he was there and he was eating, and people are wow, this guy's kind of like a jerk. But then it cuts to him and he's hey, my friend, this will be the last drink that we share until I finally get to join you in the afterlife, and then we will have another drink. And you find out that it was a friend, and he was honoring his friend, and he was having a final meal and a final drink with his friend. And just the whole life of Oden is just such a great story. And then right at the end, where he sacrifices himself in the oil, and he's there for an hour, and he's holding his people up, and everything's coming to a head, and then they, find out, and he throws them, and all that stuff happens. I thought Oden's story was fantastic, and it's such a great representation of how to write a good backstory, how to write good flashbacks, how to write interesting characters, how to write lovable characters, how to misdirect your audience as well. It was just, all in all, very well done. That's pretty much it. That's all I'm going to talk about now. I don't want to go recapping everything that happens because it was just 100 chapters that I read. I don't want to recap a whole bunch of stuff. You already know everything that happened. And I'm really looking forward to finding out what happens next. Within a week of publishing this video, I'll probably start putting up my, this is when my next live stream is. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, hopefully you'll join me for some One Piece fun. And as always, thank you very much.